If you would, mark in your songbooks the letter A, 2 pages inside the front cover of your songbook. What will you do with Jesus? After you've marked the letter A, if you would, turn to 304. 304. If you'd like to stand, you may do so. Let's sing all 3 verses. The precious book divine. How precious is a book divine, my inspiration give. Rise and let its precept shine to guide my soul to heaven. Holy book divine, precious treasure mine, let my feet and the light to my way to guide me safely home. It sweetly cheers my drooping heart in this our vale of tears. Light my life it still imparts and grounds my rising fears. Holy book divine, precious treasure thou art mine. Let my feet and the light to my way to guide me safely home. This lamp through all the tedious night of life shall guide my way, till I behold the clearer light of an eternal day. Holy book divine, precious treasure thou art mine. Let my feet and the light in my way to guide me safely home. Be seated, please. Brother David.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, beloved. Good morning to those that are joining us online. To our guests, know that you're honored guests. If you haven't noticed, we got some pretty good-looking carpet out there. Let's definitely do our best to keep it clean. Continue to read so that you can put leaves up on the reading tree. And my wife reminded me, and I'm glad that she reminded me, because sometimes people need help remembering things, especially me. My rememberer, as Bill Pickney says, my rememberer works not as well as my forgetter. Today marks my 5-year anniversary here. And so you've put up with me, you've endured with me for 5 years. And I'm just going to use that idea, that feeling, to kind of go along with my sermon. And I did not intend for it to go, but it fits. How important is reputation? I hope that after these 5 years, you see me as someone that has a good reputation before you, before the community, before my family. Reputation is something that each and every one of us as Christians should strive for. As members of Cowan, as members of communities, as families, we should seek to establish ourselves well with our fellow man, but also with God. As we see there in Luke, how Jesus Christ grew in stature, in wisdom, in favor with men, and in favor with God. Thinking about reputation. This morning, we're going to look at Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 1. You know, during 1970 and 1977, some of you might remember what Ford went through. They had a vehicle named the Ford Pinto. And it was mischievous. It was known for going boom when somebody rear-ended it. Between those dates, within 7 years, 27 people lost their lives because someone rear-ended them, and the impact did not kill them, but either the ball of flames did or the car going up in flames led to their death. During the 80s, mid to late 80s, maybe in the 90s, there was a perfume company that released perfume, and within a few months, they had to do a massive recall because within the perfume that they sold, they discovered micro-contaminants. And the perfume at first seemed to be fine. It smelt well, it smelt as it intended to, but left over time, those micro-contaminants basically putrefied the perfume, turned it into something that you would not want to spray on yourself. Solomon, here in Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 1, makes a comparison to a well-trusted, a well-renowned perfumer, letting his perfume, letting his product become contaminated to the point that it begins to spoil, and relates that to how we can allow, if we are not careful, we can allow little things into our lives that we do not clean out to putrefy our reputation. So I hope that you have your Bibles, and I want us to read just one verse. Just one verse, and it speaks about the importance of taking care of our reputation. Ecclesiastes 10 and verse 1 says, "Dead flies putrefy the perfumer's ointment and cause it to give off a foul odor. So does a little folly to one respected for wisdom and honor." You know, I got the idea for this sermon from a photograph of an old sheet sermon. Before we left Browntrow, they gave us a folder, digital folder of a whole bunch of sheet sermons that the instructors had preached from. Some were from Johnny Ramsey, Guyan Woods, and others. And so these points aren't necessarily their points, but just the verse and the idea. You know, here's the truth that we don't naturally think about. It doesn't take much to ruin something that is valuable. And oftentimes, our reputation is not ruined in one go, though that does happen. Oftentimes, we ruin our reputation one drop at a time. We prove ourselves that we cannot be trusted over time. Yes, sometimes we do something that we automatically lose our trust. People's trust in us, our reputation. You've heard the saying that reputation or trust is lost in buckets, but it's also gained back in drops. So we're going to see that reputation is not often lost with a complete collapse. But as Solomon says here, but a little folly. Because the danger is not becoming foolish. The danger lies in allowing something small to undo something of great value, of great importance, and that is your reputation. So the first thing I want us to look at is the value of a godly reputation. Here in this short verse, Solomon is reminding people that a perfumer's reputation was his livelihood. You could not stay in business as a perfumer if your reputation was tarnished. Because, yes, some people bought the perfume for, covering up some BO, but oftentimes the perfumer's job and his product was used in some of the most sacred assemblies, sacred moments, weddings, burials, in the temple to honor and worship God. And so people would seek out the perfumer and use his product in the most sensitive, the most important times of their lives. Sometimes people may come to you because they know you, they trust you, they know your reputation, and they may come to you at the most critical and most important times in their lives. Maybe they're going through difficulties in their marriage. Maybe they're going through difficulties with their children, with the job. Maybe they're fighting internal demons, internal battles. And they know that you're a trusted person. They know that you shine as lights in a perverse generation. Having that reputation is invaluable. It's precious. As Solomon just said in Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 1. Reputation is everything. It's more valuable because it can accomplish more than riches. Psalm 22 and verse 1 says, a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than silver and gold. Because you can pay someone to do something. But if by your reputation you can convince that person to do something, I guarantee you that quality is going to be done better. That person is going to put their heart and soul into it because they love you. They trust you. They're doing it as a favor. It often took great effort in obtaining the resources to make these perfumes. And they were often meticulously put together in order for it to smell good. There was a lot of trial and error, but it took time, it took money. And so the perfumer would put a lot of time and money into perfecting the perfume. Because he wanted his customers to be repeat customers. But he also took pride in his work because he knew that the majority of his product, yes, was covering some BO, but it was also used in the most sacred and important moments of people's lives. Godly reputation must be seen as the same in value, as in importance. Luke 16 and verse 10. The Bible calls us Christians to consider our lives. Paul here in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, 14 through 16 says, now thanks be to God, who always leads us in triumph in Christ, and through us, look at the words that he uses, diffuses the fragrance of his knowledge in every place. Who is the one giving off the fragrance? Us, God's people. At least we should be. For we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved and amongst those who are perishing. We give off the smell, the scent of Christ. Look what else he says. To the one we are the aroma of death leading to death, and to the other the aroma of life leading to life. Your life, your example, your reputation, you're going to show people, yes, you are on a correct path. And so you're going to be that sweet smelling aroma. But to the ones that are in rebellion, you're going to stink. Because the light, we are to be light as well. The light exposes the darkness. And that is why evil men love the darkness, because they don't want their evil deeds exposed. Here again is another example, another beautiful poetic language describing the life of a godly person. You should be, you need to be the aroma leading to life, not the aroma leading to death. We're to shine as lights in this perverse generation, Philippians 2 and verse 15. You know, the church is structured on reputation. We have studied in the past leadership, elders, and deacons, and 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 7, Titus speaks about the reputation of the elders, both within the church and the reputation of the elders that are on the outside to people of the community, but also the reputation of the deacons. We've looked at the importance of the reputation of the minister, whether he's young, whether he's old, because as a minister, my reputation is important to me, because I want anyone who listens to me to trust me enough to sit down and let me speak to you, and then you go home and you check what I'm saying. Because if my reputation was not good, then I wouldn't blame you for getting up and not listening to me. But my reputation matters to me. Christians' reputation helps preserve a nation and bring people to God. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 16. And if we as Christians, if we lose our ability to affect those that are around us, for lack of a better word, we become defiled, we become useless to God. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 13 says, you are the salt of the earth. We help preserve it. We help bring a little bit of flavor to it. But if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. If a Christian does not have a godly reputation, what good are you to the church? What good are you to God if you cannot accomplish your duties, your responsibilities to the church, to the community, if your reputation is tarnished? Your name carries weight both in this world of men, but also in the spiritual realm. In ancient times, a small vial of perfume would oftentimes cost a year's worth of wages. We have an example of this found in Mark 14, verses 3 and 5. That is how valuable your and my reputation is to one another, but also to those that are in the community. Imagine someone saving for years to purchase it, using it only once, and then finding it spoiled the next time they come to use it. Imagine someone investing in you, trusting you, opening up to you. And then you go and you prove and you show your true colors and your reputation is tarnished. Now that person who has spent time trusting you, building that relationship with you, they feel cheated, they feel broken, they feel lost. And you did them wrong, because now they're less likely to invest time, to invest themselves in establishing a relationship with someone else. You know, the loss isn't just inconvenient. This perfumer's loss of reputation isn't just inconvenient, it's painful. It's downright shameful. It could cost him his entire livelihood. The perfumer's reputation is what brings him customers. Our reputation is what brings us the opportunity to encourage and to teach. A godly reputation is like costly perfume, hard to produce, easy to notice. People should be able to easily identify you as a Christian. But it's devastating to lose. I like this quote because this captures it very well. But also the danger of small compromises. Let's read here in Ecclesiastes 10 and verse 1 again. Dead flies putrefy the perfumer's ointment and cause it to give off a foul odor. So does a little folly to one respected for wisdom and honor. Oftentimes we don't think about when we go to the fridge, when we go to the pantry, we might get something out, and we don't necessarily always close the bag of chips correctly. Screw that lid on correctly all the way. Oftentimes it's due to carelessness, not paying attention. And we think, oh, it's just a small gap. Oh, it's just one fly, 2 flies that got in. What harm can it do? Well, sometimes that 1 or 2 flies go unnoticed, but oftentimes it doesn't take much to cause something to spoil. Now, how often do we snuff at the things that seem insignificant when someone warns us that if you keep going down this path, it's going to lead to something even more significant? Solomon switches gears from something very valuable to something that is often not seen as much of a threat. 2 little itty-bitty flies, a little folly. Now, these dead flies are attracted to the sweet smell of the oils of the perfume, but oftentimes also with success, with power comes more temptation, more chances to fall and stumble, to sin. The thing with dead flies is they don't force their way in. They don't magically appear. They get in because of carelessness. A little bit of folly does not force its way in. No one makes you become a fool. No one makes you act stupid. You decide to do that. You decide to make little small decisions each and every day, and you continue to walk closer and closer to that line. That is our temptation. How close to the line can I get while having fun, while trying to satisfy the flesh, the mind, the eyes? The way sin works is the same today. Sin lies at the door. The opportunity to sin is all around us. Yes, we need to be aware of it. Yes, we need to be mindful of it. But our life and our focus needs to be on things that are above and not on things that are below. We don't need to be entangled in the affairs of this world, as Paul told young Timothy, because Jesus Christ had enlisted him as a good soldier. This folly, these flies, they slip in when we're not careful. The devil is opportunistic. Though he is limited today, thankfully, he is still hoping that we weaken ourselves, that we take our guard down and we get comfortable. We get lazy. We're not as disciplined as we should. And so the devil is always looking for loopholes that we're taking. He's looking for weaknesses in our defenses to exploit those weaknesses. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. Oftentimes, sin looks a lot smaller in our eyes. Just a little lie. Just a little this, a little that. I'll do this just one time. This sinful habit, oh, it's just a habit. Romans chapter 6 tells us that to whomever you present yourselves slaves to obey, you are that one slave to obey. Whether slaves of righteousness or slaves of sin and death. Drinking, smoking, gambling, doing drugs, fornicating. All of these sins are addicting. All sin, in a way, is addicting. Because it appeals to the flesh, it appeals to the mind. And we lie to ourselves, oh, it's not as bad. I can stop it at any time. We might even lie to ourselves and say, oh, it's not even a sin. It's just unwise. But can we afford a little? Galatians chapter 5 and verse 9 says, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Out of all the times that the Bible speaks about leaven, 9 out of 10 times it's bad. There's only one time, one parable that the leaven is used in a positive sense. But the other times, it's always used in how something that seems insignificant, something that someone either accidentally mixes in or allows to be mixed in or puts in because they think, oh, maybe a little bit of leaven will make it taste better. You know, people do that with their denominations. They want to add things to their worship. And so when we allow just little things into our lives, our reputation before men, our reputation before God gets tainted. It gets ruined. You know, Solomon begins with small things in his life. We all know, and if you don't, you can read what led to Solomon's downfall. It began with women. It began with adding more and more women into his life. You know, the Pharisees were rebuked, not for being legalistic, because there's nothing wrong with doing things by the book. There's nothing wrong with making sure you are doing it as it says in black and white and holding people accountable. There's nothing wrong with that. What the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes were rebuked for is that they had a stair step. They put things more important, less important. They made small compromises. This compromising behavior led to Jesus saying, do what they say, but do not do what they do because they've lost their reputation. You cannot trust them. Jesus even said, whoever you make a proselyte, you're making him twice the child of hell as you are. Because at least the Pharisees had a foundation built on truth. But whoever they convert into a proselyte, their foundation is built on that tainted, compromised version of truth that the Pharisees were living. But here in Matthew 23 and in verse 23, Jesus says, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithe in mint and anise and cumin, very important, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. Why are they weightier? It does you no good paying all these sacrifices to God if you cannot be connected to the people that you're serving God with. It's empty, it's vain, it's meaningless. God does not want just us to come in a bubble and worship him. He wants us to bring as many people to the light, as many people to the truth. And we can't do that if our reputation is tarnished. And it gets tarnished and it gets ruined by little inconsistencies. You have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. These you ought to have done without leaving the others undone. How does sin get in? Well, we watch things that we shouldn't watch. We tolerate things that we shouldn't tolerate. We make excuses when it demands action. And we delay. We delay, we delay, we delay. Most people are not destroyed by what is massive. They are undone by what is minimized. A perfumer letting a little bit of flies come in, letting his stock sit with the lids not completely tightened. That's nothing massive. But he's minimizing his diligence. He's minimizing his efforts. He's minimizing his awareness. And so his stock of perfume gets ruined. Our reputation is ruined. And so the devastating effect of contamination. Solomon tells us the end result. The perfumer's ointment that he neglected, that he allowed little things to come into, it becomes rancid. The person that was once respected is now seen as a fool. These insignificant flies putrefy the ointment because they begin to decay in the ointment. The chemicals, the digestive juices in the flies begin to mix with the oils, begin to mix with the perfume, and they ruin it. The things that we allow to go unheeded, unchanged in our lives can ruin our reputation. This foulness is to the point that the perfume is seen as useless. The stink outweighs any potential good, and oftentimes it would be thrown out. Does that speak of you as a friend to someone, as a co-worker, as a member of Calvin, as a member of Winchester or beyond? Has your reputation become to the point that you are seen as useless, ruined? What was once labored for with great expense is now wasted. Sin spreads, infecting. Going back to Galatians 5 and verse 9, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. It affects every single thing, and we know how leaven works. It continues to spread until everything is the same, until everything has been infected by the leaven. The entry, the decay, the fermentation of the fly, ruining the ointment. What about sin? James chapter 1 and verse 15. We've looked at that quite a few times. That is the equation to sin. Now, we must not underestimate sin's potential to just mess things up. David messed up his reputation amongst the nations. The Jews messed up their reputation amongst the Gentiles to the point that Paul was rebuking them, saying, I don't count this good for you, but the Gentiles, they blaspheme God on your account. They've seen how you live. They see that you are hypocrites, and so they blaspheme God because of you. What about ourselves? Evil company corrupts good habits, good morals. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 33. The sad thing about the perfume is once it spoils, it's ruined. But it can be replaced. He might be able to win his customers back. But what happens when your reputation is ruined in the eyes of someone that you're trying to help see the light? Trust is built bit by bit, but it's so easily lost. You can afford to lose 1 or 2 vials of perfume. But can you afford to lose a soul? 1 soul is too many. 1 soul is too many, because you will give an account for how you lived, what you said, what you did, and that soul is going to weigh on you. Yes, they are going to be held accountable for not continuing to seek the truth. But you do not want to be a part of the reason why someone never came to the truth. You do not want to be part of the reason why someone left the truth because of sin. Doing righteously, living righteously, speaking the truth in love, if they leave because of what you told them, you did no wrong. But if sin was part of the reason why they left, then that's on you. Think about milk for a minute. I know some people who can tolerate a little bit of spoilage. You know, they smell it, and you can just smell a little bit of spoilage, and you can maybe even stomach it. But eventually that milk begins to thicken. Eventually that container begins to bloat. And I don't care how strong of a stomach you have, when it comes out gloopy, you can't swallow that stuff. We must not allow our influence to spoil. Because there might be some people who can look at our weaknesses, who can get past them. But why should we tolerate our weaknesses and just go, I'm human, it's okay, and never work on them? Because if we can still try to do our very best, then that 1 soul that is seeking the truth will not be turned away by us. I'd rather have people leave and turn away because they don't like what the truth says than how you present yourself, how I present myself. Building character, developing consistency, establishing influence. It's so important. Solomon says, don't let something small destroy something significant. A man acquired a very valuable violin. He took it home and he played it, and it just played the most magical, most sweet sound that he had ever heard. He paid a great amount of money for it. The man was careless. He just put the violin somewhere and stored it for years. Did not maintain it, did not try to preserve it, did not take care of it. Well, one day the man decided, hey, I want to go play that violin. He goes into his attic and he finds the violin, and there's dust and there's other stuff that has grown on the violin, and he begins to play it. But no matter how hard he tries, that violin will never sound the same. He did not take care of it. The once beautiful sound is gone, ruined. It had been neglected in small ways over time. Solomon is warning all that influence is not always destroyed in a single moment, but over time. A little bit of folly here and there. 1 fly, 2 flies here. The question is, am I allowing something small that has the power to become destructive into my life? Consider what the Hebrew writer says as we close. Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, those in Hebrews 11, we have examples to follow. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. He is our focus. He is our example. Maybe you're here this morning and you're not yet a Christian. We love to sit down with you, study with you, and it is required to become a Christian. And make sure that you are indeed a Christian, or that you become a Christian by how the Bible says. But maybe you are a Christian and maybe you need the prayers of the church. Maybe you need some guidance because we need to guard our reputation. Souls are dependent upon it. Our own, but also those that we come into contact with. God has done His part. We need to do ours. If you're not a Christian, we can help you with that. We'll show you what the Bible says. If you are a Christian and you need the prayers, maybe you need some guidance, maybe you just need someone to listen, we can help you with that too. If anyone has any need this morning, please come forward as we stand united and as we sing.
Jesus is